Thank you so much for helping me out with this assignment. I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, I'd love to just get into it. I'm a little bit behind, so I'm trying to play catch up. Okay? Did I tell you what it is we're supposed to be doing? Oh, well, okay. So it's a little weird, but I need you for my anatomy homework. No, not like that. Not like that. Like, I have this textbook, right? And it's kind of a big boy. This is Grey's Anatomy. Not the show, but the text that it was named after. And right now we are studying the osteology and the muscles of the skull. Now, I don't really have access to a model, and I'm finding it a little hard to understand where everything is at just based on these drawings. Let me show you what I mean. So, oh gosh. Okay, so here we go. So in the skull, there are 22 bones, right? We have them in the face and the cranium. But then when we're looking at pictures such as this is your occipital bone, which is at the back of your head. But this is kind of hard to visualize. I mean, this is where your spinal cord comes out, and this is more where we'd be able to feel. But some of these pictures are just a little strange to me. I mean, let's look at the parietal bone here. It's a little hard to picture just based on these pictures. So I just wanted somebody to allow me to feel their head and maybe map some things out. So that's what you're here for. Okay? All right, so I have my worksheet here, and I'm supposed to be locating these particular parts on the skull. And if you're okay with it, I would like to mark them out with a little eyeliner here. So this is easily washable, but it'll help me figure out where everything is. Okay? Yeah, before I go marking on your face, I mean, I'll be looking at the suture lines and the ridges so that I know what I'm doing. You won't leave here like full of squiggles, okay? All right, thank you. So because I need to mark you up a little bit, is it okay if I touch you? Cool, thank you. All right, so let's get started, huh? So I marked out the first page of the osteology text. Okay, there we go. So the bones in the skull, let's see. Bones in skull. We have two sections. We have the cranium and the face. Cranium, and this is the occipital. There are two parietal bones. Frontal. 2 temporal, the sphenoid, and the ethmoid. Okay, and then in the face we have 14 bones. Let me put a little number here. So there's 8 in the cranium and there's 14 in the face. Okay, so we have the nasal. There's 2 there, superior maxillary. Okay, we have the lachrymal. Lachrymal. Okay, the malar. The palate. Inferior turbinated. Turbinated. We have the vomer and the inferior maxillary. Okay, so now all we have to do is map these out on you as best as we can. So let's see. Okay, so as we had looked at before, we have the occipital bone. So this is looking down on it from the inside. So we have where we can feel the occiput right here, and this is where the spinal cord comes out. Pretty sure. That's what it looks like. So if I were to feel this bone, and probably not going to be able to mark that up because your hair, but that would be right, you can feel where your neck meets your head. So that would be right. That one's right here. Okay, so right in the back here, do you feel these ridges? You feel right here. So that's where the occipital is, and then we come down a bit. So all that part of the bone, that's the occipital. So that one's easy enough. So occipital, we know that one. We don't have to mark it. We have the inner surface of the occipital, and then we get into the parietal. So this one is a little easier to figure out, even with the vague diagram. So with the parietal here, this one I can figure out where it's at because we have the temporal muscle that attaches right here. And your temporal muscle is right in here. So I can ascertain that this upper temporal ridge is most likely the ridge in here. So that means your parietal bone is likely at the side here, right in this area. So, and there's 2 parietal bones. So that means that it's over here as well. So that one's easy enough. And then we get into the frontal. Let me just mark down that we got our parietal bones. And I think, let's see. Yeah, so if we look here, so this is where the frontal and the parietal bone meet. Right here. So I'd like to just mark the spot where they meet you don't mind? Okay, so we're just going to just come right in here. And just very gently, it'll be like a gray little line mark here. Then I can find the distinction easier. Okay? And now frontal. So the frontal bone. This is where your forehead is. So this looks pretty familiar. I mean, it's a little vague, but it's easier than the parietal bone or the occipital. So we have the ridges of the orbital bone here. We have the parietal, that'll be on the side. And then we have the forehead. You can even see where the nose would be, right between the nose and then the forehead. So the frontal bone on you would be from these lines that I've drawn, separating the parietal and the frontal, and right in here, all the way back here. From this area all the way back to here. Right there. So that's easy enough. Now let's see. Okay, so the temporal is going to be a little different. So let's see. Zygomatic, that's going to be the cheekbone here. And external auditory medius. So that must be in this area. Yeah, we have the squamous portion and the temporal muscle. So let me show you what I mean here. These are a little more vague, but I think we've figured it out. So we have the temporal muscle here and the zygomatic right there. And the external auditory medius, that is your ear canal. So we can comfortably assume that it's probably more in the side of your head. Let's see. Oh, sternocleidomastoid. Okay. So yeah, that's the neck muscle there. Okay. So it's going to be in this region right here. So on you, right here, you can feel the pencil just trace. So we have the external auditory medius right here. Okay. And then if we come up just a little bit, we can feel right behind the ear here a bit. And then we have all the way to, this is the zygomatic right here, cheekbone. So this area in here. Okay. And then on your other side, it would be right about here. Okay. Just at the side of the head. That is our temporal bone. So we have two temporal bones. Figured that one out. Took a little bit of time. And then let's see. The sphenoid. Interesting. Okay, so sphenoid means a wedge. Interesting. Okay, so as I look at the bone here, there's not anything that really tells me much. Okay, so it's situated at the anterior part of the base of the skull. So posterior is back, anterior is front. Okay. In its form, it resembles a bat with its wings extended. Interesting. Anterior surface of the sphenoid. Orbital surface of the greater wing. Temporal muscle. Oh, okay. So that must be interesting. So it looks like we're not really going to be able to see this one necessarily. Let me show you what it looks like. So this one is more situated inside the skull. If you can see that. I mean, it said it looked like a bat, but it more looks like a butterfly to me. But based on what it's saying, it's the anterior part of the base of the skull, so it's going to be more like in the middle. That one's a little difficult to see, although... Okay, so temporal muscle, so it must be... Oh. Okay, so actually, we might have to redraw this a little bit. Let me just get that a little bit. So the sphenoid is going to be right in the temple areas, and our parietal is a little further back. So then we have right in here, right there. Okay, good. So our sphenoid is right in this area, and parietal goes back, and then we have the frontal, sphenoid here, parietal, frontal. Okay. All right, so that was a little more difficult, but we figured it out. Now the ethmoid. Let's see. Ethmoid is exceedingly light, spongy bone of a cubical form, situated at the anterior part of the base of the cranium, between the two orbits at the root of the nose. Consists of three parts: a horizontal plate, which forms part of the base of the cranium, a perpendicular plate, which forms part of the septum nasi, and two lateral masses of cells. Okay. So that's going to be more in this area. Also sometimes articulates with the tuberosity of the maxilla, which is your upper jaw. Okay, so let me show you this one. This is what we're looking at here. So this is the outer surface of the right lateral mass, right here. And here's another look here. And we have the perpendicular plate right there, sort of pentagonal shape. Okay, assists in forming the septum of the nose. So yeah, so it's gonna be more in this area. So we've got this little bit where the frontal stops. We have just this little bit. So on you, it would be right in this area, wouldn't it? Right here. So let me see. Do you mind if I touch around that area? Okay, so right. Okay. I got that. So this is the ethmoid. Ethmoid in here, and this is where the frontal is. And then we have the orbital bones. So we're just going to just mark that right there. Okay. Okay, cool. So that's all the bones in the cranium part of the skull. Okay, so now we have the face bones, and there are 14 in total. Okay. The cranium, the nasal bones. Okay. 2 oblong bones, varying in size and form in different individuals. They're placed side by side at the middle and upper part of the face, forming, by their junction, the bridge of the nose. So that's going to be this area here. Looks like. Yeah, so nasal bone, spine, and then we have the teeth here. Let me show you what I'm looking at. Right here. So we have the teeth, we have the nasal bone, and right here is where that cartilage should be. And then you have the eye socket here, and the lachrymal bone right inside there. You see that? Yeah, you don't really care too much, do you? I find it very interesting, especially when I have someone to actually feel these bones and mark out where they actually are. So on you, we have the bridge of the nose right here. And comes down, so we have the orbital here, and then we have one there. So let me just mark that out a little bit. Okay. So I'm not going to get too defined with it. Okay, so yeah, the maxillary tuberosity. Interesting. Let's see, so the superior maxillary. Orbital surface. The molars. Which are back here. So we have in here, in this area. Interesting. Okay. So let me just look. Right. Superior maxillary. So we would have the nasal bone over here, and we have the orbital ridge here, and then over here. So we have the canines here, bicuspids, and molars, incisors, so we're looking at it from the side here. But that would be on the side of your face, on both sides. So it would be from right about here, back here. This sort of area here. Right And then on the other side, we would have in here, in that area. Let me just feel that. So we have the ethmoid up here, the nasal bones, down to the superior maxillary. And superior means above. Inferior means below. Okay, so if we were to mark that out, we would have about in this area here, we have the molars back here, bicuspids, canines, incisors right there. Canines, bicuspids, molars. Okay. So superior maxillary, done. Let's see. Superior maxillary. There we go, lachrymal. Lachrymal, translated as a tear, are the smallest and most fragile bones of the face. They are situated at the front part of the inner wall of the orbit and resemble somewhat in form, thickness, and size a fingernail. Hence they are termed ossa unguis. Unguis. To work on my Latin a bit, I think. Each bone presents for examination 2 surfaces and 4 borders. Okay, so it borders the inferior turbinated, the ethmoid, the frontal, and superior maxillary. So let me show you here. I think we had seen that little ridge, the lachrymal, in this area. You see that? You see the lachrymal there? Very, very small bone. So that one's going to be a little hard to mark. But I'll have to know that that's just in this area right here on both sides. It's sandwiched between the inferior turbinated, the superior maxillary, frontal, and ethmoid. It's pretty sandwiched in there. And the malar bones. Okay. Ah, I see. So maxillary process here. Malar, zygoma. Interesting. Mala means the cheek. 2 small quadrangular bones situated at the upper and outer part of the face. They form the prominence of the cheek. So right in here. Right in here. So the lower part of the cheekbone, whereas up here is the zygomatic. So if we were to look here, so it would be these bones right in here. Interesting. That's easy enough. Let me show you. A much better picture here. Right here, the malar bone. So you can see that you have orbital ridge, you have the bottom part of the cheekbone, and then you come into the top of the cheekbone. Zygoma, right in here. The maxillary process right there. So that's easy enough. I'm gonna mark that, and I'm just gonna feel those ridges, because those are pretty prominent. Okay. Just like that. And then the malar bone on the other side. Okay. Okay. Good. Now we have the palate bones. So I know the palate is inside the mouth, right? Let's see if there's anything on the surface. The palate bones are situated at the back part of the nasal fossae. They are wedged in between the superior maxillary bones and the pterygoid processes of the sphenoid. Okay. Each bone assists in the formation of 3 cavities: the floor and outer wall of the nose, the roof of the mouth, and the floor of the orbit. Interesting. So let me show you. There we go. Okay. So orbital process, sphenoid process, superior turbinated crust, inferior turbinated crust. We have the teeth here. Nasal process. Interesting. So that one's a little hard to get to, I think. Left palate bone, internal view. Well, it looks like you will be getting off easy with this one, as I don't want to go poking around inside your mouth. It's a bit impolite. You're already helping me out quite a bit with this. Okay, so inferior turbinated bones. Inferior, rather. The inferior turbinated bones, turbo meaning a whorl, are situated one on each side of the outer wall of the nasal fossa. Each consists of a layer of thin, spongy bone curled upon itself like a scroll, hence the name turbinated, and extends horizontally along the outer wall of the nasal fossa, immediately below the orifice of the antrum. Let's see. So, lachrymal bone. Oh, so it's in there. Antrum, interior. Okay, so yeah, that's in there. I don't know that we want to go poking around in there either. Let me see. It's connected to various bones along the outer wall of the nose. So yeah, we won't be getting into your nose either. But that's good to know. So palate, yes. Inferior turbinated, yes. So we have the vomer and the inferior maxillary. The vomer means a plowshare. Interesting. A single bone situated vertically at the back part of the nasal fossa, forming part of the septum of the nose. It is thin, somewhat like a plowshare in form, but it varies in different individuals, being frequently bent to one side or the other. It presents for examination 2 surfaces and 4 borders. So the vomer, that's in the nose. That's in the nose. Let me show you. This has a better picture. So this is from the side. So we have the frontal sinuses here, which are behind the frontal bone on your forehead. And then the vomer is right here. So this is inside. This is the little ridge where the bone of the nose is underneath the cartilage. We have the teeth back here, the ethmoid, the septum, the sphenoid. So I guess in these last little bits, you are getting off pretty easy. Let's see. So, vomer, good. Inferior maxillary. The largest and strongest bone of the face serves for reception of the lower teeth. So now we get into here. Now we get into the jaw. That'll be easy enough. All right, and we have the masseter muscle in here. Very good. So let me show you. Right in here. We have the lower jaw. So that's easy enough. Inferior maxillary, and I can mark that out. So we come in to this area. Oh, let's see. Just let me feel. Okay. All right, so we can go right in here. And then it comes down, and then we have the lower jaw. Lower jaw here. Come up and over. Right? I guess it's probably not a good idea for you to look in a mirror right now, but it'll wash off pretty easy. All right, then we go into the skull as a whole, the sutures. Oh, wonderful. We have a side view of the skull. Now they tell us after the fact, Although maybe I would know this if I had taken a look at my textbook. Okay, so we can see all sorts of different bones here that we had a little bit of a hard time looking at. So right in here we have the frontal bone. We have the sutures, okay? And then we had, this is the parietal bone, so this is a huge bone here. The occipital at the base of the skull. And what were you again? The sphenoid in here. This little where your temple is. And then the temporal bone. Your zygoma here, zygomatic arch. The malar, right here. We have the inferior maxillary, right there. Your vomer is in here. Alright, so that's a lot easier to see, huh? Okay. So yeah, this is a little better as well. You can see all these parts here. So maxillary bone, malar bone, temporal, sphenoid right there, frontal, the lachrymal right on the inside of the eye socket there. Nasal bone here, superior maxillary. Let's see, looks to be about it. Superior maxillary goes into there, sphenoid goes into there, frontal. Okay. And it just gets into a whole lot of words that I don't really care about. Cool. So, let's look at what we've got going on with muscles. I don't want to keep you too long. Okay, structure of joints. Articulations, muscles, and fascia. Okay. Oh, we've got a lot going on. Muscles and fascia. of the cranium and face. They consist of 10 groups arranged according to the region in which they are situated: cranial, auricular, palpebral, orbital, nasal, maxillary, mandibular, intermaxillary, temporomandibular, and pterygomandibular. The muscles contained in each of these groups are the following: cranial has the occipitofrontalis, the auricular has the atrahens auriculum, atolens auriculum, and retrahens auriculum. The third region, the palpebral, is orbicularis palpebrarum, palpebrarum. I'm not paying attention in class very much, am I? Corrugator supercilii, tensor tarsi. In the orbital region, we have levator palpebrae, rectus superior, rectus inferior, rectus internus, and rectus externus, obliquus superior and obliquus inferior. In the nasal region, we have pyramidalis nasi, levator labii superioris alicae nasi, dilatator, who came up with these words? Dilatator naris posterior, dilatator naris anterior, compressor nasi, compressor narium minor, and depressor alae nasi. In the maxillary region, we have levator labii superioris, levator anguli oris, zygomaticus major, zygomaticus minor. In the mandibular region, levator labii inferioris, depressor labii inferioris, depressor anguli oris. In the intermaxillary region, we have the buccinator. We have risorius, orbicularis oris. Temporomandibular region is the masseter and temporal. Easy enough. And the pterygomandibular region is pterygoideus externus and pterygoideus internus. Oh, babe. So let me show you a diagram here. So we've got a ton. We have the trapezius in here, and we've got the sternocleidomastoid. Let's see, we have the temporal fascia here. We have the masseter, zygomatic major, zygomatic masseter, or minor rather. Orbicularis palpebrum, palpebrum. Corrugator supercilii there. Okay, so this would probably take up a lot more of your time, huh? Yeah, I think this might be better for a whole nother session, considering how many muscles there are. Let's see, 1, 4, 7, 10, 14, 18, 21, 25, 28, 31, 33, and 35. Oh, we only had 22 bones in the skull. Okay. Well, I think I'm gonna have to ask you to maybe help a brother out again here soon. Yeah, I hope it wasn't too much of a problem for you to help me with my assignment. I really learned quite a bit, a lot more than I would have learned in class. But, yeah, let's go ahead and get you cleaned up. So, I have some tissue that I brought, and it should maybe just leave like a little bit of a mark behind, but nothing crazy, okay? Alright, so we have the frontal bone here in the forehead. We have the sphenoid at the temples. Okay, and then we have the parietal, which is these big bones back in here, and the temporal. So we know those easy enough. The sphenoid and ethmoid were a little difficult, but we had some borders in here. And I know the lachrymal is right in there and there. And then we had the nasal, which we had talked about being in this area. We had superior maxillary. Right in here. We had the Malar bones, ending with the zygoma at the top here. The palate we couldn't get to, or the inferior turbinated, or the vomer, but we did get the inferior maxillated right here. Okay, so let me see. Let's get a little bit more here. So when you get home, you'll probably want to just wash with some regular face soap, just to get any traces off. I was really light with the strokes so that it'd be easy for you to clean off. There we go. Okay. So I guess that'll do it. So if you want later on, it's completely up to you because you're the one helping me out here. I would appreciate looking and mapping the muscles of your face, all 35 of them. But that's totally up to you, okay? So thank you for letting me do this. I really appreciate it, and it's helped me a lot. You don't even realize. Okay? So, anything else I can do for you before you go? Okay. Well, let me know. I really owe you one. Okay. So thank you so much for coming over and doing this with me. I hope you have a whale of a day and a good rest of your night. Thank you.